Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha Kunj Bihari Radhe
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 Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Haladeva Mai Subhadra
Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Mani Subhadra
Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Bala Gopal Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Giri Govardhan
Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Bala Gopal Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Giri Govardhan
Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai
Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva.
Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva.
Nitya Haribo, 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 Nitya Haribo.
Nitya Haribo, 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 Nitya Haribo.
Jai Hari Nam Sankirtana ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Nantakuti Vaishnavinda ki
Jai.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya
Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Namo
Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, welcome to our Friday evening satsang. Thank you, Mataji and Prabhuji, for hosting us. So, a little dangerous situation. I don't have a watch with me. So you can throw something at me at the appropriate time to end. Feel free. Or just get up and leave. Whatever suits your heart. But today we'll discuss the Glories Srila Narottam Das Thakur. So we have been discussing over the last few weeks the pastimes and activities of various great personalities. And we may wonder why we discuss these pastimes? What is the benefit? Well, if we go back to our academic studies, we see that we have studied, so-called great people, right? If you go into the bookstore, one of the largest sections in the bookstore are the biographies, where we hear and read about people who've done something of great value. And there's genuinely a natural interest to hear about someone who has done something spectacular, particularly when we hear in a non-envious mood, but when we hear in a mood of, maybe trying to become inspired by. So our scriptures explain that the success in spiritual life, it depends on following in the footsteps of our previous acharyas. Rupa Goswami gives his 6-part formula for success in devotional service, and he says satovrittihi as the 6th aspect, and that means to follow in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. So the word acharya itself is very instructive for us. Acharya means, what does acharya mean?
Teacher.
One who
Teacher.
follows.
One who
Follows what he teaches.
One who follows what he teaches. One who teaches by example. One who preaches by action, not just by words. That is the meaning of acharya. And what does it mean to follow in the footsteps of our previous acharyas?
To get their experience.
To
To do like their experience.
So to do like their experiences, yeah.
Not to imitate their actions, but to get inspired by what they did and try to follow them.
So not to imitate their actions, but to become inspired by their activities. Yeah?
To follow their instructions.
To follow their instructions. And acharya is leaving many instructions, right? And what is the purpose of these instructions? What is the goal of these instructions? To make us a billionaire? Then we might read some wealthy capitalist like John D. Rockefeller. How did he make fortunes? And then I can make a fortune, right? So what is the instructions that these great acharyas are leaving us with?
So finally we can achieve peace and happiness in life, which all of us want.
How to find peace and happiness in life. How to find perfection of life. So the discussion of these great personalities is not just to be awed and to think, wow, what a great, but it is to inspire us to follow their instructions and teachings. So our scriptures explain that there are 2 Bhagavats. There is Grantha Bhagavat, which is book Bhagavat, and there is Mahabhagavat, the person Bhagavat. And to glorify Grantha Bhagavat or Mahabhagavat has the same potency. They're both extraordinarily auspicious for us. So we say Grantha Raj, Srimad Bhagavatam, and we have wonderful discussions on Srimad Bhagavatam in other scriptures. Like that, to hear and to glorify a great acharya, a great personality, is very, very auspicious for us. It is said that it cleanses the contaminations of the heart. We have so many contaminations in our heart. We have envy, we have greed, we have anger, pride, and illusion, and all these different things. And by hearing about these great acharyas, one cleanses the heart. So hopefully, by hearing about Srila Narottam Das Thakur, we'll be inspired to follow his teachings, and also will obtain some purification so that we can make progress in our goal of life of finding peace and happiness through awakening our dormant love with the Supreme Lord. Okay? So that is the purpose of today's study. So Srila Narottam Das Thakur is a great acharya, and so we'll put him in context where he kind of comes in our line of disciplic succession. So we've been studying the pastimes of Raghunath Das Goswami. We discussed Lord Nityananda. We'll be discussing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu coming up. So we know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, as we discussed, to give Krishna Prema, this love of God, very freely and widely. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had 6 Goswamis that he had instructed and given the intimate and intricate teachings of spiritual life. How to practice bhakti yoga. How to practice. He gave exhaustive detail and teachings. And he asked them to write very fully, write all the things they had learned and begin to propagate that. And he said to, basically stay in Vrindavan and bring about all of the different holy places of Vrindavan. And like that, that was the mission of the 6 Goswamis. And the knowledge that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had given to them and that our great Goswamis had written and also began to teach, it was still very limited in its geographic reach. It had stayed confined within the holy lands of Vrindavan and some other places like Navadvip, Jagannath Puri, and other holy places. And so, fulfilling the prophecy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, where will his names be chanted? Every town and village of the world. Not just of India or one part, no, of the whole world. The names of Krishna would be chanted. And so, Srila Narottam Das Thakur, along with 2 other great personalities, Shyamananda Pandit and Srinivasacharya. These 3 personalities took the teachings of the 6 Goswamis and began to distribute them. They took them from the town of Vrindavan under the instruction of Srila Jiva Goswami and began to spread this message all over different parts of India. And they were, in some way, the second wave of acharyas, the second revolution of bringing this process of devotional service, of bhakti, to all of us. And so we study and understand their great importance. Srila Narottam Das Thakur's unique gift to us, some of you may know, what is Srila Narottam Das Thakur's special gift to all of us?
Bhajans.
His bhajans. And what is unique or special about these bhajans?
Utter sense of humility that he has when he considers himself so...
He considers himself humble. That gives its potency. But the unique aspect of these bhajans is that Srila Narottam Das Thakur was able to synthesize the highest, most intimate, intricate secrets of bhakti and bring it down to very common language. So, up until this time, all of the secrets of devotional life, they were presented in Sanskrit. Now, to understand Sanskrit, one must be called... We don't say, I know Sanskrit. If you are a Sanskrit scholar. It is very, very detailed, very intricate, not accessible by the masses. So, Srila Narottam Das Thakur took the essential truths of Krishna Prema, love of God, and synthesized them down into very simple poetry in Bengali, which then made it accessible to the masses. And these bhajans are not ordinary bhajans. They represent the natural, the intrinsic, the spontaneous mood of Narottam Das Thakur in his experience, that we get into his heart when we read, and even the translations of how he felt. This is not just some, theoretical, but this was the revelation of his heart. And from that we can see the mood we are trying to inculcate. within ourselves. And one of the principal moods you'll see in his bhajans is this mood of humility. This mood of humility. So he composed these bhajans. They're primarily found in 2 books. The Prarthana, which has 33 songs, and this Prema Bhakti Chandrika. Actually, the second verse of our Shikshashtakam prayers is Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. That is composed by Srila Narottam Das Thakur. And offering his obeisances to who?
Rupa Goswami.
Rupa Goswami. His offering to Rupa Goswami. So this is the second verse that comes in his Prema Bhakti Chandrika. So, and we know Srila Prabhupada established us singing many of his bhajans. Our Guru Puja, Guru Vandana prayers are sung by, or written by Srila Narottam Das Thakur. So, these bhajans are extraordinarily powerful for us. Gorkishore Das Babaji, who is the spiritual master of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. When he was asked how to find Krishna Prema, he says, very easy. You just go to the marketplace, you pay 25 pesos. That's like 25 cents in today's terms. And so you buy 2 books. Which 2 books? Prarthana and Prema Bhakti Chandrika. He said, if you don't have so much time, so much money, you just buy these 2 books and you study these bhajans. You sing these bhajans. And you will find Krishna Prema, perfection of life. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, if you want to make your life perfect, you study 3 books. The Shri Upadeshamrita, Nectar of Instruction, Prarthana, and Prema Bhakti Chandrika. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that these bhajans written by Narottam Das Thakur are as potent, non-different than the potency of the Vedas themselves. Now that's quite a characterization of the potency of these bhajans. And we see Srila Prabhupada, each evening in the privacy of his own room, he would close the door, retire for the evening, and he would get out his harmonium and he would sing these bhajans, these Vaishnava bhajans, and inculcate this mood of Krishna Prema. So as part of our sadhana, if we sing these bhajans of Narottam Das Thakur and our other great Vaishnava acharyas, they can help bring out this mood of love of God. They're very, very sweet. So we can see his great ability to bring this knowledge to us, and our subsequent acharyas have glorified how important these are. And that's why Srila Prabhupada established some of the very important prayers from our Vaishnava acharyas, and particularly Sri Narottam Das Thakur, so that we can recite them daily. And if we don't know Bengali, we should read the translations so we know what is it that we're singing. So they're very, very sweet. So now Narottam Das Thakur, let's discuss who he is and a little bit of his pastimes and activities. So he appeared about 100 years after the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just for context. 1635 is when he appeared. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared at the end of the 1400s, 1486, in our kind of Western calendar time. And he stayed here for 48 years. So as he was wrapping up, about 100 years later. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after taking sannyas, he was on his way, I think, or maybe he had already reached, but after reaching, or somewhere around Ramakeli. And he was near the area of Kanainath Shala. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to, in ecstasy, chant out the names of Narottam, Narottam, Narottam. And he was just chanting, Narottam, Narottam. And all the associates were sort of confused. Who is this Narottam? Because they knew nobody by the name of Narottam. They were asking, do you know? Do you know? They were checking their Facebook. I have no friends named Narottam. So they were confused. And But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was lost in ecstasy. And so Lord Nityananda asked, who is this great personality you have so much affection for, that you were calling out with such love? This Narottam, we know nobody of Narottam. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was saying, don't worry, he is coming. This great Narottam Das is coming. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Lord Nityananda, you don't know your own glories. That when we are in Jagannath Puri, you are crying tears of ecstasy in our Sankirtans. And you are exuding this Krishna prema. Remember last time we said that Lord Nityananda is a personification of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's love. And this love, this Krishna prema that Lord Nityananda was exuding, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, I have captured that. I've captured your tears. And I have kept them in the safekeeping. And now let us go and keep these secure for Narottama. This Narottam that's going to come. So they went to the Padma River. This river currently creates the border between Bangladesh and Bengal today. It's some 40 or so kilometers from Kanai-Nachala. So it's a very beautiful place. And there they went to the Padma River and they summoned the personification of the river, Padmavati. They said, you come. And she came and said, I want you to hold this Krishna prema for Narottam. And when he takes bath in your river, you please give it to him. And Padma River said, well, okay, but how will I know who is this Narottam? When is he going to come? What is he going to look like? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, don't worry. As soon as his toe enters the rivers, they will start to overflow, and you will know that this is the Narottam. So you keep this Krishna prema for him. I am giving it to you, and you give it to him. And so like this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally delivered Krishna prema to Srila Narottam Das Thakur. So Narottam Das was born in the town of Keturi, which is just near this area where this place took place. It's called Premtali. That is where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu deposited love of Godhead for Narottam. So he appeared in this town of Keturi, much like Raghunath Das Goswami. He appeared in a very wealthy home. His father was a great king, kind of landholder in the area of current day Bangladesh, which is at that time all part of India. Actually, his father and brother were both great, rich people. And so Narottama was like a prince growing up. And so he lived in this home. His father's name was Krishnananda Datta, and his mother's name was Narayani Devi. So he grew up a very, in external view, very opulent lifestyle. But like Raghunath Das, had a very strong mood of detachment. He was a brilliant scholar. His teachers were shocked. Anything he read once, he had full understanding, very expert. And he was carrying on his life. And around the age of 12, Lord Nityananda came into his dreams. And he said, Narottam, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has deposited something for you. You please go and take bath in the Padma River. And so Narottam Das Thakur gets up and quickly goes. And as soon as he entered into the river, giant waves and waves and waves were coming. And the Padma River understood, this is Narottam. And so he received this Krishna prema, and immediately he was overcome and overwhelmed with this mood of love of God. His whole existence transformed. He actually turned from a darkish complexion to a very golden complexion as he came out. And his heart was completely transformed. And he was just swimming in the love of Supreme Lord Krishna. and he was chanting and dancing and singing. And when he returned home, his mother and father became very worried. This is the prince. He was going to be the heir to the king area. And now his mother and father are saying he has no attachment to any of this. He is just swimming in love of chanting the holy names of the Lord. And so like any parents, they try to protect him. And so they tried to secure him. Just like Raghunath Das Goswami. They said, don't run away. And they had guards, they had people making sure, don't run away. Because they started to see his increasing mood of detachment. But as we know, due to our great fortune, there were grander plans for him than to be some simple landholder, some very wealthy landholder. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again came into his dreams and said, you go to Vrindavan. You go to Sri Vrindavan Dham. And actually, Narottam Das entered into the Harinam Sankirtana movement. See, Narottam, as he was growing up, one nice Brahmana would come to his house every day, and he would teach him all the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They would just discuss Gaura Katha. And so Narottam Das Thakur had this feeling of, I wish I could just once participate in the Sankirtan and through the streets of Navadvip. These very ecstatic kirtans. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, though he could not in his manifest form, is non-different. He entered through his dreams and he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He offered his obeisances. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced him to Lord Nityananda. He met Lord Nityananda, offered obeisances at his feet. Lord Nityananda took him to Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya blessed him with the dust of his lotus feet and then brought him back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And like this, he got all the blessings from the great Acharyas. And they all said one thing: go to Vrindavan, go to Vrindavan, go to Vrindavan. Actually, our scriptures explain that we should all develop this strong, intense desire to go to Sri Vrindavan Dham. The mood of loving service between Krishna's devotees and Raj is unparalleled. And by living in Vrindavan Dham, one can experience this mood of intense loving service to Krishna. But more than being physically in Vrindavan, we should be mentally and spiritually in Vrindavan. So we may not be able to physically be there, but that desire and hankering to be in Vrindavan Dham can be manifest. And Srila Prabhupada, by his great mercy, brought Sri Vrindavan Dham to all of us here in Detroit by establishing this Devasadan Mandir. Non-different. Kunja Bihari. He is the king of the kunjas. The pleasure goes to Sri Vrindavan Dham. So this mood of going to Vrindavan is very, very important in a devotional life. So Narottam Das developed a very intense desire. And due to some nice divine arrangements, one day his father and uncle had gone to attend to some business, and he left. And he just started walking. And he wasn't even walking, he was running. Almost 90 kilometers a day he was covering. Through dense jungle, through forests, just going. And he was fully engaged and enthused on this hankering to be with the Goswamis of Vrindavan, to live under the shelter of the great Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami, and relish the katha of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so he was just going and going and going like this. One day, he just flat passed out in the forest. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came again into his dreams and brought him one pot of milk. Although he came in the guise of a Brahmana, it was none other than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then Rupa and Sanatana Goswami said, "Wake up, Narottam! Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has brought you this milk to drink, to nourish you." And he was lamenting, "Oh, I missed him again." But he carried on like this. So Narottam Das Thakur carried on 1,300 kilometers from Keturi to Vrindavan. All walking. He left in the month of Kartik, and reached Vrindavan in the month of Kartik. Very auspicious time. And so when he reached Vrindavan Dham, he just reached Mathura actually first at Vishram Ghat. And there he met one old Brahmana. And he told him that Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami had left. Their pastimes were completed. And now they are no longer on this material world. And Narottam Das Thakur was just struck with pain of separation. He was so eager. And he was like a stone, just standing in complete disbelief. But he knew he had to carry on to enter Sri Vrindavan Dham. And so he continued on. And he reached the Govindaji temple. And there he met Jiva Goswami. And Jiva Goswami and all the associates of Vrindavan, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they knew someday this Narottam was going to come. They had heard about this pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanting out Narottam, Narottam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually came into the dream of Jiva Goswami also and told him, this Narottam will come. And you instruct him, you guide him. So all the associates were eagerly waiting for Narottam to come. And when he reached, there was a great sense of jubilation and excitement to have the association with this great personality. And so Jiva Goswami very nicely greeted Narottam Das Thakur. Narottam Das Thakur at that point, just previously, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came into his dream and said, you go to Vrindavan. He said, you go to Vrindavan not to hang out, to socialize, or to do some tourism. He said, you go there and you take initiation from Lokanath Goswami. So he asked Jiva Goswami, I'm supposed to see Lokanath Goswami. He didn't know who he was, had no clue. But he said, this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has told me. So Jiva Goswami was very excited to introduce Lokanath Goswami to Narottam. And Lokanath Swami himself was instructed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come into his dream and said that a great prince is going to come and see you. And so Lokanath Swami was also very enthusiastic to meet this Narottam Das. And Narottam Das presented himself and he said, I must take initiation from you, please give me initiation. And Lokanath Swami said, I cannot give you initiation. I have no disciples. I am a Bhajananandi. I'm in the forest worshipping my Radha Vinod deities. I'm not mixing in the public. I'm not having disciples. There are different types of spiritual acharyas. Some who go out very actively and preach, and others who stay in a much more secluded realm. And Lokanath Swami was of the latter. And so he said, I cannot, he says, you don't need a guru. You have been given Krishna Prema from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. He is your Adi Guru. Why you don't need. You have got direct mercy from Krishna. And Narottam Das Thakur, he understood Shastra. He said, no. Krishna has told me to take initiation from you. My Adi Guru said, you have to give me initiation. So please. And he begged and begged. Lokanath Swami said, no. So Lokanath Swami said, okay, he gave something. Shastra says you must chant the holy names of the Lord sincerely for 1 year. He said, okay. And he began chanting. And he was already chanting. He was already full of Krishna Prem. But he followed the instructions so sincerely. And he began to render very, very menial service to Lokanath Swami. So menial. But he did so in a way that nobody would know. He was not doing some, sometimes we do some menial service and want to show everybody. Did you see I was sweeping the floor? Like this. Narottam Das Thakur, in the evening, in the middle of the night, he would go, back in Lokanath Swami was living in the jungle. So he would perform his morning duties, in some area. And Narottam Das Thakur would go and clean that whole area with his own hands. He would make everything very nice, clean. And each day, Lokanath Swami would come to this place and he would see everything was nicely situated, and he would perform his morning duties and things like that, and wondering who is doing this day after day, but nobody is coming. So one day he decides, he goes late into the night, hides behind a bush, and just watches and watches and watches, and finally he sees late night, early morning, someone coming. And he goes, "Who are you? Why are you doing this?" And then he sees, "Oh, it is Narottama." He says, "I cannot take service from you like this." Loknath Swami was also of great humility. He said, "I cannot take, you are a prince. You're a prince, yet you are doing this very dirty, so-called dirty duty." And Narottama said, "That is my duty to serve my spiritual master with whatever may be done. If you will not give me direct service, then I must do indirect service." And like this, so steadfastly committed he was. Loknath Goswami was refusing to give initiation. But Narottam Das Thakur would not take no. He had every right to say, "Okay, I don't need, I have Krishna Prema from Krishna. Well, I'll just read his books and I'll follow the instructions. Why you need Guru?" Narottam Das teaches us that Krishna said to do this. Krishna tells all of us in the 4th chapter, "Tadvidi paripatena pariprashnena sevaya upapdekshanti te ganam jnaninas tattva darshina." So you must approach a spiritual master, must render service to him. Pariprashnena sevaya. He must inquire submissively from him. That is our duty. And so Narottam Das teaches us a great example of that. And ultimately Loknath Swami yielded. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually came back into his dreams and said, "Why you are not giving?" and began to chastise Loknath Swami. And finally Loknath Swami said, "Okay," and he gave initiation. These are very transcendental pastimes. And as soon as he took initiation, he told, "Now you study under Jiva Goswami." After Rupa and Sanatan Goswami had left, Jiva Goswami was the leader of our Gaudiya Vaishnava. So he was the nephew of Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. Remember, Rupa and Sanatan Goswami were brothers. Their brother's son was Jiva Goswami. So Jiva Goswami was managing all of the affairs of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. He was writing extensively. He was writing commentaries. When Rupa and Sanatan Goswami would write, particularly Rupa Goswami's books, Jiva Goswami was editing. He was an expert scholar. We could have another whole class on Jiva Goswami. His contributions to our sampradaya are unfathomable. But so Narottam Das studied under Jiva Goswami. And the headquarters of our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya was there at the Radha Damodar temple. And there Jiva Goswami would gather with Narottam Das Thakur, Shyamananda Pandit, and Srinivasacharya. Actually, at that time they were known as Nitya Krishna Das, Narottam Das, and Srinivas Das. And after studying very expertly under Jiva Goswami gave them the titles of Shyamananda Pandit to Nitya Krishna Das, and to Srinivas he gave the title of Acharya, Srinivasacharya, and to Narottam Das he gave the title of Thakur, and later Mahashayi, which is a great poet. So Narottam Das Thakur Mahashayi. So these titles were bestowed upon them by Srila Jiva Goswami. And so like this, they were doing many wonderful services, reading and studying the Shastra. Once in the dream of Narottam Das Thakur, you see, Narottam Das Thakur has a great fortune of having these great personalities come to him. So once, one very beautiful personality came into his dream and said, "I am serving your Shyamananda, Krishna." And she said, this was none other than Srimati Radharani, and told Narottam that you have one service now, and you can help Champaklata Gopi. Her service is to prepare milk sweets for Krishna. And so he had the service of boiling the milk for this making of the milk sweets. And so Narottam Das Thakur, his eternal Nitya Leela, he is Champak Manjari. That is his position in the spiritual world. And so his pastimes were to boil milk. And he would sometimes go into such deep, intense meditation in his chanting that he would see himself boiling the milk that would be made into milk sweets for Krishna. His service was just to boil the milk. And he would burn his hands. Such intense was his seva from his mind that even his hands would burn. And he would cover them so nobody would see. And once Jiva Goswami discovered the burning of his hands, and he started, "What are you doing? How you're burning your hands?" And then they would share the pastimes. So like this, you can see Narottam Das Thakur was very intensely practicing his Krishna consciousness. And so after some time, the Jiva Goswami asked these three great personalities, to begin this movement of distributing all these literatures. So the Goswamis have produced so many literatures, volumes and volumes of literatures, but nobody had began to distribute them. And so actually the first book distribution party ever was the book distribution party of Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivas Acharya, and Shyamananda Pandit. So they loaded up the bullock carts and headed out of Vrindavan Dham. And there's some nice pastimes that take place on that, but we'll carry on just because of time. What time is it? so I don't lose track.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock? Okay. Somewhere in the world it is 7 o'clock. So, they actually went with the books to one hotel, you can say. And there was one mystic who could ascertain the value of anything. And based on that, they would plan various robberies. And so when they came, these three, renunciates, they had nothing. But they had this bullock cart. And the mystic, he could not figure out what is the value of these books. The numbers kept going higher and higher. There was like a running total. They could never figure out the value of that. What is this? So the proprietor and this man, they decided to steal the bullock cart. And so when the next morning, when the three woke up, they thought, our books are gone. And so like this, Srinivas Acharya said, "No, don't worry. I'll figure out a way to get the books back. You carry on." And Shyamananda Pandit and Narottam Das Thakur continued on preaching. And they carried on moving. But ultimately, Srinivas Acharya recovers the books. But Narottam Das Thakur made his way back to Keturi, where he was from. And there, he was wearing, basically a kopin and a kamandula and nothing. He was a prince. And so his mother and father saw him, and they were very elated to see Narottam Das after a much long time of separation. But understanding his mood of renunciation, they built a small bhajan kutir for him. And like that, he began preaching. And he began preaching very, very nicely all over the area. He was traveling throughout the area. And, some controversies ensued because, he was from this Kayashta family. So there's considered in our, sort of as a Sudra. Yet he was giving initiation to even Brahmins because he was, so pure that as soon as he would begin to speak, people's hearts would melt and they would understand this real philosophy. And so, like that, he was preaching many, many different places. Once in Keturi, near his hometown, there was a young man walking, and he was walking with some goats. And this was his name was Ramakrishna, and he was a son of Shivananda. And so Narottam Das Thakur was walking with one of his very close, intimate associates, which is Ramchandra Kaviraj. Ramchandra Kaviraj was a disciple of Srinivas Acharya, and very, very close, intimate associates. We sing in the end of this song, Ramachandra Sangha Mange Narottama Das. Narottama Das asking when I can Sangha again with Ramachandra. This is a Ramchandra Kaviraj. So they were walking down the street and they see this Ram Krishna walking with some sheep and goats, and said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, my father is, doing some Durga Puja, and so we're going to sacrifice these goats." And Narottam Das Thakur begins to preach very sweetly. This boy saying, "What are you doing? This is not the right way of our philosophy," and began to preach to him about Krishna consciousness. And in moments, Ram Krishna was completely convinced. And he sat down, they shaved him up, put tilak on, dhoti kurta, bead bag in hand, tulsi mala, and he was chanting in ecstasy. And Shivananda is wondering, where are my goats and sheep? My boy is so well trained, I've raised him so nicely as a brahmana to do these things. Doesn't he know this puja is waiting? And like this time had passed. And finally Ramakrishna goes home and his father sees this and no goats for the Durga Puja, and he becomes so angry and so upset. And actually Durga Devi comes into his dream, Shivananda's dream, and says, "You don't know, he is hearing the name of Hari and you should also." And like this, Narottam Das Thakur converted so many caste brahmanas, Martha brahmanas, into pure Vaishnavas. And each one that would initially criticize him, Durga Devi would come into her dream and say, one was afflicted by leprosy, was dying. He said, "Unless you fall at the feet of Narottam Das, you have no hope." And so like this, he was preaching and converting so many people into pure Vaishnavism, saving them from a death spiral of so-called spirituality. But the Smarta Brahmanas became very envious and worried. And so they concocted a plan. They went to the king and they said, this Narottam Das, he is, creating a havoc in our society. He is a Shudra and he's giving, initiation to Brahmanas. What has happened? Not understanding the real essence of Vaishnavism. And so they concocted a plan. They said, "Let us call one big scholar, one big Pandit. And we'll have a debate between him and Narottam Das. And he'll be embarrassed and defeated. And then nobody will follow him. Nobody will listen to him anymore. We must defame him." They called this one big Dvigbajai Pandit by the name of Rup Narayan Pandit. He said, "You come." So the king said, "I'll personally come with you and let us go." So this big party came, big entourage started coming. So two of Narottam Das's associates, one his disciple Ganga Narayan Chakravarti, and this Ramchandra Kaviraj. They decided, we cannot let Narottam Das Thakur face these rascals. So they went out of the village, and they said they know this party is coming from this direction. So they went, meet halfway. When the party is coming, they have to stop someplace overnight. They'll need some facilities for their cooking and different things for staying. They decided, so they'll open up 2 stores. So on one side of the street, they opened up one clay pot store. They said they'll need some clay pots for cooking and some things like this. And on the other side, one opened up a betel nut store. So he'll sell some betel nuts. So these brahmanas, they want to chew betel nut after, relaxing, after taking prasad. So like this, they did, business would be good. So they established there were no other competition. So this party came. So the advanced party came, of course. The advanced party comes and they see these two, one patwala and one betel nutwala, and they're talking. They're talking in Sanskrit. He said, "How these low class, uneducated, illiterate shopkeepers are speaking in Sanskrit? We just said nobody can really understand Sanskrit today. How scholarly it to be? These shopkeepers are speaking in Sanskrit." So these are all like the servants, disciples of this Rup Narayan Pandit. He says, so they start speaking back in Sanskrit. They are scholars also, so they start speaking in Sanskrit. And then they start, of course, what they do, they start debating. And these, high scholars of Rup Narayan Pandit, they become defeated in minutes. So what happened? We lost to a clay pot wala seller and a beetle net wala seller? What is going on? And so they retreat back quickly to the king and to Rup Narayan Pandit. They said, we've been defeated in debate by a shopwala. We're speaking Sanskrit. That's perplexing. And so Rup Narayan Pandit and the king said, let us see. So they go and they start speaking again, and they're also defeated. He said, who are you people? I said, we are nobody. We are nobody. And Rup Narayan said, no, who are you? He says, we are just the lowly disciples of Narottam Das Thakur. And Rup Narayan says, if I have been defeated by the disciples, what Narottam Das must be like? And he ran away. And actually, again, Durga Devi comes into their dream and says, that is Narottam Das, you must fall at his feet. You have offended a Vaishnava. And beg for forgiveness. And they actually go and beg for forgiveness. So like this, Narottam Das Thakur's glories were spreading everywhere. In Keturi, Narottam Das Thakur also established one very, very important tradition for all of us. And he inaugurated the celebration of Gaur Purnima, the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And how he inaugurated this festival is a whole discussion of itself. Very, very exquisite. So he goes back to Keturi, and his cousin, the son of his father's brother, so his cousin, Santosh Datta. He had now the king. He had inherited. By this time, his mother and father, Krishnananda and Narayani Devi, had left the planet, and this Santosh Datta was ruling everything. So a very powerful personality. But he also was very, very sweet, and he became a disciple of Narottam Das Thakur after a little few bhakti vrikshas. He started hearing very nicely. And so he said, let us celebrate in a grand way the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so Santosh Datta became very enthusiastic. See, when we have means, facilities, whether it's wealth, whether it's our intelligence, strength, whatever it is, we use it in the service of Krishna. And so Narottam Das Thakur invited all of the great, great Vaishnavas of this time to come and descend upon Keturi, and we would have a great big celebration of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. They sent out exquisite invitations, very beautiful. We think wedding invitations these days are very elaborate, like nothing like this. Very beautiful invitations went out to all of Navadvip, all of basically Goramandal area, and everywhere, all the great acharyas, wherever they were, received wonderful invitations. And so they made, Santosh Datta made wonderful arrangements, giant boat. He had a beautiful boat built, and he would cross all the Vaishnavas as they would cross the river in this very beautiful boat. And when they would get off the boat, he would have beautiful palanquins to carry all these Vaishnavas to the place. And there he had assembled and built, just for this festival, newly constructed homes for each and every one of the guests to participate in this festival. There were no tents or limited. He used all of his wealth and facilities to serve the devotees. We know that when we serve Krishna, he is very pleased. But when we serve the servants of Krishna, he becomes even more pleased. Krishna is more happy when we serve his devotees than when we serve him himself directly. And like this, Santosh Datta and Narottam perform extraordinary service to all the Vaishnavas. And who was coming? Janava Mata was coming, who was the leader at this time of the Gaudiya Vaishnava. She was the consort of Lord Nityananda. Advaita Acharya's sons were coming. Shivas Thakur's family was coming. Raghunandan was coming. Srinivas Acharya was coming. Shamananda Pandit coming. All these great, great Acharyas were coming and going to descend upon Keturi to celebrate. And many instructions came. Lokanath Swami instructed Narottam Das Thakur that you install 6 deities at this festival, and they built a beautiful temple, and there was a great installation ceremony of the deity. Srinivasa Acharya oversaw the installation. Basically this festival is what we see today. There was kirtan, there was deity worship and dancing, and there was feasting. And the day before, there was a beautiful kirtan. Narottam Das Thakur was leading ecstatic kirtans. All late into the night, everybody rose early morning for Mangalarti, and then after Mangalarti, Srinivasa Acharya began to perform the various sacrifices and ceremonies, the Abhishek for the installation of the deities. All the Mahaprasad was distributed, and like this festival went on and celebrated the first ever Gaur Purnima festival this way. And we follow in the footsteps of Narottam Das Thakur. That day of the celebration, Narottam Das Thakur was asked by Janava Mata to again lead kirtan. And it was such an ecstatic and beautiful kirtan. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the Panchatattva themselves came and began dancing together with all the devotees in this kirtan. You can just imagine what kind of kirtan it must have been. Such an exquisite, transcendental experience. And Janava Mata, at that point, again, this is about 100 years after, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had departed, a little bit more at this point. So Janava Mata performed a very important service at this meeting. So at this gathering, she unified all of the, Gaudiya Vaishnava followers. There were some different factions, and so she brought everyone together, and she was like the leader of our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, and was creating and establishing all the different systems and processes and carrying on our philosophy. So she played a very important role, and that happened here at this Keturi festival, celebrating the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So like that, many, many pastimes. My signal has come. So, so I'll just discuss how he left this world. It was also very, very sweet. There's a place called Dudgak, which we all had the fortune of going there. Had the fortune of also going to Premtali, where this Krishna Prema was deposited in the Padma River. I was hoping to have some remnants to acquire some Krishna Prem. It didn't work, but maybe next time, or next time, or next time.
Prabhuji, where is Padma River?
It's a tributary off of the Ganga. Currently, it separates Bengal and Bangladesh, in kind of the northwest side of Bangladesh. Very beautiful place, and we went there once, and there's a beautiful temple and one house there. We stayed, and then up along the river bank, and then you go down, you take bath, and then come and just have Krishna Katha. It's a very, very beautiful place.
Is it in Bangladesh or is it?
It's in Bangladesh. It's in Bangladesh. So, like that, this Narottam Das Thakur's place where he left. So he became quite, sick in external circumstances. When Srinivasa Acharya left and Ramachandra Kaviraj left this planet, they wrapped up their pastime. Narottam Das Thakur was just aching in separation, so pained in separation. And so he decided it was time for him to also wrap up his pastimes. And so he became afflicted with a high fever, and Ganga Narayan Chakravarti, his disciple, took him to his house, and and he was and for 3 days, he had basically gone into samadhi, intense meditation. And he was, in external circumstances, had left this world. And so they were preparing the funeral pyre and everything. But these Smarta Brahmanas, they began to criticize Narottam and say, see, your guru, because he had given initiation to Brahmanas as a Shudra, this is his punishment. He is leaving his body and he cannot chant the holy names of the Lord. He is simply, in a meditative state. And like this made his disciples very angry, very upset. And so they begged Narottam Das, please come back, show these people. And Narottam Das Thakur actually then relented, and he came back and he began chanting the holy names of the Lord. And all these Smarta Brahmanas were, And they all became converted. They all fell at his feet and became pure devotees. And that way he was not coming to show his power. He was coming to cultivate the hearts. Ultimately, sometime later, he stayed a little bit longer, and then he decided to leave. And how he left is very, very sweet. So he told Ramakrishna Acharya and Ganganarayan Chakravarti to, bring kirtan party. So big kirtan was going, and he entered into the Ganga, and he asked them to start pouring water on his body. And as he was pouring water on his body, his whole form began to blend, disintegrate into the Ganga. And it turned into milk. His whole body turned into milk. And very intelligently, Ganganarayan Chakravarti Thakur had one vessel. And he grabbed the vessel and captured some of this milk and made the samadhi at his house. It's still there today. You can go. And that is a dud samadhi. So he has no form left. He left this way. Of course, his eternal pastime is boiling the milk. And in that way, he returned back to the spiritual world as Champak Manjari, to return to his service of serving Gopi Champaklata and making milk sweets for Krishna. But his Dud Samadhi is there in this area called near Dudgat, at the home of Ganganarayan Chakravarti. You can take darshan of this vessel still today. It's very, very nice. So like that, Srila Narottam Das Thakur showed us how to remain detached from the material world. Born in a very princely family. Great devotees. His parents were wonderful devotees also. Yet remained fully detached. You can see his enthusiasm in following the instructions. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you take initiation, you go to Vrindavan. He did not ask how, when, what do I do? He just went. When Loknath Swami said no, did he say okay? No. He remained determined, persistent. How he won over the heart of Loknath Swami? With his intelligence, with his debating powers, by demanding, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself told you and me. No. With very menial service, with a humble mood. Behind closed doors, he would render service to fulfill the mission, the wish of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He understood how to do that. And when Loknath Swami gave him instruction, he said, now you study under Jiva Goswami. And he studied under Jiva Goswami. When Jiva Goswami said, you leave Vrindavan, he had come all the way to be in Vrindavan. And now Jiva Goswami says, go out for preaching. He carried on. Like that, he began to, with his purity, raise so many disciples, teaching them about real success in life. And his whole life was an illustration of how to find perfection in devotional life. So Narottam Das Thakur has a very, very important place in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. And as we said in the very beginning, his bhajans are very, very sweet and very, very powerful for us in bringing out this mood of love of Krishna. We should sing these bhajans. We should incorporate them as part of our sadhana. And we should study these bhajans. Because as Gaurkishore Das Babaji said, Krishna Prema, 2 books. Prartha, Prema Bhakti Chandrika. If you don't have much time or much money, go there. So we're very grateful to Srila Prabhupada for introducing Narottam Das Thakur to all of us and introducing this practice of relishing the nectar of his bhajans. And as we said in the very beginning, the purpose of hearing and studying the pastimes of these great acharyas is to inspire us to follow in their footsteps, to follow their instructions. Not to imitate, but to follow. And by hearing these pastimes, hopefully we can obtain some purification of the heart. And so, with that, we'll start. Srila Narottam Das Thakur ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Any comments or questions?
Well, which year we are talking about? How many hundred years back? This one.
He appeared in 1635.
So did the Mughals were there? And see he made through that night.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Shall we chant?
Prabhuji,
Yes.
can we sing one bhajan, Prabhuji, at least for Narottama?
Yeah. You can
Radha
sing.
Krishna Pran Mora. If, or any of your children.